All right, our next segment here is brought to you by Indochino. It's time for Looking Good Out There, brought to you by Indochino. And the guy I wanted to talk about, who's looking good out there last weekend, was Patrick Mahomes. When I wanted to talk about the mental toughness side of this and just being unaffected by the moment, Mahomes was the guy that came to mind. If you watch him in the first couple drives, the first quarter of that game against the Ravens, he was incredible. He was incredible in those first couple drives. And the Ravens defense adjusted. It's the best defense in the NFL. They made it hard on them in the back half of that game, but he still made enough plays to put Kansas City in a position to win that game. I looked up the numbers today, okay? Mahomes has now played 17 playoff games in his career, which is a full season worth of playoff games. His numbers in those playoff games, that season of games, 4,800 yards, 67% completions, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 0.23 EPA per dropback. For context, he was at 0.27 last year when he won the MVP. Sam Monson from PFF pointed out something else that was really good. His turnover-worthy play rate over that stretch is like 1.2%. which is even less than it is during his regular season games over 6 seasons. So this is over 6 years against the best teams in the NFL, theoretically, and he has played at an MVP level over that stretch. It's staggering. It's probably the best 6-year run that anyone has ever had in the history of the sport when you include the postseason, and it's his first 6 years in the NFL. Like, we're running out of superlatives for the guy, but I want to try anyway. And I want to try to zoom in on what's different about this version of Patrick Mahomes compared to the one that we saw when he came into the league. So when you're watching him play right now, what stands out to you about the way that he's grown and kind of the way that he's tweaked and altered his game over the last 6 years?
Not every single play has to be a home run threat. I think that's the biggest thing for him is, especially this year, he's learned and he's had to evolve how to play with a championship level defense. Because make no mistake about it, this is easily their worst offense numbers wise he's ever been a part of, and easily their best defense that they've ever had. I mean, top 2 in the entire league this year, led by Steve Spagnuolo. And I think with a guy like Mahomes, you don't have to show off the cannon and the special plays all the time, because I will say, like, Brandon Staley, weird, I didn't think I'd bring him up in this conversation. Brandon Staley did a huge study on Patrick Mahomes over his first 4 or 5 years, and the amount of turnover-worthy plays that he had was, I don't remember the exact number, but it was an insane amount of plays. And there was only so many interceptions, a lot of drops, penalties, costs, stuff like that. So he was putting the ball in harm's way in the regular season. And I think if you look at just the postseason games, the number that sticks out, only 7 interceptions, right, through 17 games. That's insane. Almost 40 touchdowns. So he's protecting the football.
He hasn't thrown an interception in 7 playoff games, 7 straight playoff games.
And I think that's my point, is he's learned to not put the ball in harm's way, and he's learned to let the game come to him a little bit. And when he needs to make these superhero plays, which he did 2 or 3 times on Championship Sunday in Baltimore, he makes them and he doesn't miss them. That's what's crazy, is he doesn't always have it because he doesn't need to have it. And I brought the stat up earlier in our other segment, was that the Chiefs have been really balanced this postseason running the football. Only 12 more passes than runs through 3 games. And I think it sort of let him just get under center and in the shotgun and just sort of let the game come to him. And it's not like it's like a Josh Allen thing where he's just constantly trying, sometimes Josh is, to make a huge play. Okay. But I do think, and you even heard it in the press conference with Spags, hey, I've had to learn how to evolve. I've had to learn how to play a game with a great defense that Spags has. And that's a punt. It's okay. A turnover's awful. But a negative play can be a sack. A sack's fine. Let's punt it, get the ball back, get into a rhythm. And you saw that because they were sort of shut out in the second half against Baltimore. I thought that Baltimore did some really good things defensively in the second half. Only scored 17 points, which is a point above what Baltimore was giving up on defense the entire season at 16. So I do think that he is at a point in his career to where even in 2019, when he was rolling, they won their first Super Bowl, like he was throwing the ball around the yard. Like it was wild. Every play, superstar play, highlight play. I think he's reeled that in and said, hey, I don't always have to make a play if stuff's not open, because quite honestly, teams have just been playing man-to-man coverage because these receivers can't get separation. Travis Kelce was nowhere to be found in the regular season, but come to the playoffs, he's everywhere. And he's leaning on his guys, but he's also using his legs at an extremely high rate. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry in these 17 playoff games, which is wild. 81 carries for 460 yards. That's a big deal. So when things aren't covered, he's understanding, okay, maybe not in the regular season, I don't need to run because I need to stay healthy, but I'm putting my body on the line when it comes to playoffs. So all those little details, they matter, and he has mastered it, man.
If you look at the beginning of his career, obviously Tyreek Hill was there, and they pushed the ball downfield consistently. I mean, that was the nature of their offense. When you look at the league in 2018, we're still living in this mostly Seattle cover 1, cover 3 world where it's a lot of single high defense, and they had Tyreek Hill. So they're just launching. It is just bombs away constantly. In 2018, Mahomes averaged 9.1 air yards per attempt, which was the 6th highest mark in the entire league. He was 5th in the percentage of his throws that year that went 20 plus air yards. Let's fast forward to 2023 as the entire league has transformed to stop these sorts of passing offenses. We're dealing with lighter boxes. We're dealing with more too high shells. This is the nature of the sport and the way that Patrick Mahomes has approached it. Goes from 6th in air yards per attempt in 2018 to 30th in 2023. Goes from 5th in the percentage of his throws that travel 20 plus air yards to 24th, from 15% to 10%. And you can feel that when you watch those first couple drives. They're just controlling the ball. He's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. It's a screen here. It's a bubble there. It's a quick completion in the flat here. And then when he has to make those superhero plays every once in a while, you can list him off. He had the back shoulder throw to Kelce on the first drive, which was absolutely insane. I mean, just an insane throw. The line he puts that ball on and the accuracy of that ball is absolutely ridiculous. 2 plays earlier, I want to say, was the 4th and 1 where they sprint out and he has to find Kelce on the move while drifting to his right. He has a scramble on the second drive that ends up picking up a first down in a key situation. He's able to do all those moments where they ask him to make a play. He's still able to do it while controlling the rest of the game by avoiding negative plays and making sure the offense is staying on schedule. And the other side of this that I wanted to ask you about, because I don't really know what I'm looking at or processing, it feels to me like his command and control at the line of scrimmage is just on a completely different level than it was even early in his career. He's pointing out the fronts. He's changing protections. He's doing everything from that space that makes sure the offense is in a good spot, whether it's the call, the protection, everything before every single play. So you have the most physically gifted quarterback I think I've ever seen playing the position while also being an absolute master at every single level of the mental game now.
You must have been watching some of my content. On my YouTube channel.
I actually wasn't. This is me just rewatching the game this morning.
Dude, you hit it right on. And I actually did on NFL Network on Friday. I did a cut to the chase telestrator thing. They cut to the chase, and it's just me at the telestrator drawing up. And they wanted me to do Mahomes. I'm like, yeah, I'll do Mahomes. But I was like, I'm gonna do how Mahomes has changed the game this year for him mentally. And we went through a 2-minute dissertation on one play, and it was the Miami play where it was an incomplete pass to Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman wasn't looking. It was cover 0. And what he did at the line of scrimmage to be able to get himself and buy himself an extra second in the pocket. It is so like in-depth and like football 404. Like you hit it right on. And I said in that segment, and I'll say it again now, I think Patrick Mahomes has done the best job of his career at the line of scrimmage, understanding mentally what he needs to do to get the Chiefs in the right play at the right time. And a lot more has been put on him at the line of scrimmage. And that play I'm talking about, I'll try to explain it because it's wild. They're bringing sawdog pressure. They're bringing double-edged pressure. They're in 6-man protection, shotgun, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're in 6-man pro. They can only pick up 6. They're bringing 7, though, because the Mike linebacker adds on. He has the running back in man-to-man coverage. What Mahomes is so good at and understands that, and they talk about it all the time there, when you bring double-edged pressure, you want to make the center go, which means mic it. You want to mic it to the running back's side. So they're going to slide the line from center over is going to slide all the way out to this nickel back to pick him up. And then the will linebacker, who's opposite of the nickel, the back has to go across and track him. And the reason you do that, you want the back to go across and block him, because the Mike linebacker's job actually is not the blitz. It's he has the back man-to-man. And so when he has the back man-to-man and the back scans across, the Mike's like, oh, shit, I need to go get him. Oh, wait, no, I can add. And just that extra second, it's like literally not even a second, but just that extra second he knows he has. He's a freaking maniac. He goes back, pumps an out route versus cover zero, and throws a dime to Mecole Hardman. So he tries to rip your freaking heart out in cover zero. And you saw it again with the Ravens on the big play down the sideline or down the middle of the field to MVS. That might have been over a lot of people's heads, but I say go to my YouTube channel and watch it, because you hit it right on. I literally, in my last YouTube breakdown too, is hit it. It's like everyone knows what he can do physically, but the mental aspect from him has made him a whole nother player.
How terrifying is that? We're talking about he's having the best run, the best 6-season run of any player in the history of the game, probably. Better. And he's getting better. He's getting better. This is with quarterbacks. It's always so cool to watch this trajectory, because early in the game, it's why for pocket passers in this era, I worry about what they'll be early in their career, because it's harder to win mentally when you're in your first, second, third season. Totally. So you have this guy that was a physical phenom throwing to two physical phenoms during the first act of his career. And now as he's entered the second act and as he's moving into his prime and the mental side of it is becoming more and more honed, he becomes even more terrifying, because now you're getting to this place that Brady, Breeze, Manning were in when they got 6, 7, 8 years into their careers, and they weren't as physically talented as this guy is. So we are dealing with a truly scary proposition with him and this team moving forward. And I say it all the time. I'm guilty of this. It sometimes just glazes, it washes over me, right? Because it's so, the greatness
washes over everyone.
It's so unceasing that I sometimes fail to recognize it in the moment. As I was going back to rewatch that game this morning, and I watched those first couple drives, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, I think that's so true.
It's unbelievable.
Like, people do glaze over it. And this isn't like a plug, but like, I didn't even, when I do my YouTube quarterback ratings, I didn't even break him down for the first 17 games of the year, because I'm like, everyone knows he's great. Like, everyone wants to know about question marks like Brock Purdy or Justin Fields. So I was like, you know what? I don't even need to. And I was like, you know what? After the Miami game, I was like, screw that. I'm breaking it down. My guy was like, it's not going to get a lot of views. It got like 50,000 views, because they understand now that it's like the playoff time.
This is when it matters.
This
is when the Mahomes conversation comes roaring back.
It's been his best game. In the Miami game was his best game of the year. Then his Buffalo game was the best game of the year. Now this Baltimore game, I am dead set on. It was his best game of the year. So you're going to get the best game of his year in the Super Bowl versus Purdy. He's going to win his third Super Bowl. It's wild. I
thought the Ravens defense, just to hit that very quickly, and maybe why they didn't play as well in the second half, I thought their adjustments were great. They did not send a lot of pressure in the first couple of drives of the game, because you don't want to do that against Mahomes. It's always dangerous to blitz him. So they didn't really. So if you look at the pass rush snaps from the linebackers specifically, they start creeping up after the first two drives and then deep into the second half. Queen and Roquan Smith combined had 13 pass rush snaps. Almost all of them happened after the first 22 minutes of game time. And they weren't just blitzing. It was a lot of simulated pressure. It was a lot of droppers from the line of scrimmage. They're playing with those mic points. They realized we can't just let him sit back there, because if we're just going to let him sit back there, he's just going to slice and dice us. He's going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And they did a really good job adjusting. But by that point, the lead was big enough that it didn't end up mattering because of how good he was over those first couple drives.
Totally.